My dear friends, gather around and let me share with you a tale from long, long ago, a tale so powerful that it can change the way you see your own life and your own heart. This isn't just a story about a king. It's a story about the great battle we all face, the battle between pride and humility. It's a story about a God who loves us so much that he will do whatever it takes to bring us back to him. Imagine, if you will, the most magnificent city you've ever heard of. Picture walls so thick that two chariots could race side by side on top of them. Envision grand palaces with gardens that seemed to hang in the air, a sight so breathtaking it was one of the wonders of the world. This was Babylon, and its ruler was a man named King Nebuchadnezzar. He was not just a king, he was a conqueror. He was known as the King of Kings. He had everything: power, wealth, glory, and he believed with all his heart that he had earned it all by his own strength. He looked out at his kingdom and saw only his own reflection, a monument to his own genius. His pride was like a tall, unshakable mountain in his heart. One night, this great and powerful king was troubled by a dream. It was a dream so vivid, so terrifying, that he woke up in a cold sweat, but when he tried to remember it, the details had vanished. He called for all his wise men, his magicians, and his sorcerers. "Tell me my dream and its meaning," he commanded, but they couldn't. How could they? They had no power to read his thoughts. The king was furious and threatened to execute them all. But then, a young man from a faraway land was brought before him. His name was Daniel, a man who loved and served the one true God. Daniel didn't boast or brag. He simply said, "There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." He then told the king not only the dream, but its hidden, profound meaning. The dream was of a great statue. Its head was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet of a mix of iron and clay. A stone, cut without human hands, struck the statue on its feet, and the whole thing crumbled to dust, blown away by the wind. Daniel told the king that the golden head was Nebuchadnezzar, the greatest king, but that after him, lesser kingdoms would rise and fall. He said the stone was a symbol of an eternal kingdom, God is kingdom, that would one day destroy all the other earthly kingdoms. The king was amazed and fell to his knees before Daniel, recognizing the power of Daniel's God. But dear friends, listen closely to this part. Even though he saw God's power, the king's heart was still hardened by pride. It was as if he had only seen the reflection of God's glory and not the true light. So, what did the proud king do? He decided to build a statue of his own. But he didn't stop at just a golden head. He built a colossal statue, all of gold, from head to toe. It was a monument not to God, but to himself. And he made a decree. When the music played, everyone in the land had to bow down and worship this statue. It was a test of loyalty, a test of who was really in charge. But a few brave young men, friends of Daniel, their Hebrew names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, but you might know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, stood tall. They refused to bow. Their faith in God was stronger than any king's command. When Nebuchadnezzar found out, his face was red with rage. He demanded they be brought to him and gave them one last chance. "If you do not worship the statue, I will have you thrown into a fiery furnace," he thundered. Their response is a lesson for all of us. They said, "O Nebuchadnezzar, our God is able to rescue us from the blazing furnace, and he will rescue us from your hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up." This, my friends, is true faith. Trusting in God's power to save you, but also trusting in his goodness even if he doesn't. So the king, in his blinding fury, ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The fire was so fierce that it killed the soldiers who threw the 3 men in. But when Nebuchadnezzar looked inside, he couldn't believe his eyes. He saw the three young men walking around, completely unharmed. And not only that, but there was a fourth person with them, one like a son of the gods. Can you imagine? In the middle of the most terrifying, impossible situation, God was right there with them. The king was so shaken that he called them out and praised their God. But even after this miracle, even after seeing God's presence, the pride in his heart was still not completely broken. Time passed, and the king had another dream. This time he saw a majestic tree, so tall it reached the heavens, providing shelter for all the animals and birds of the earth. But then a heavenly messenger came down and ordered that the tree be cut down, its branches lopped off, its leaves scattered, and its fruit thrown away. Only its stump was to be left, bound with iron and bronze. Daniel, with a heavy heart, told the king the meaning. The great tree was Nebuchadnezzar himself. The dream was a prophecy that he would be cut down from his power and live like a wild animal for a long time, until he learned one simple yet life-changing truth, that the Most High God rules over the kingdom of men and gives it to whoever he chooses. Daniel begged the king to repent, to change his ways, to show kindness to the poor. But Nebuchadnezzar's pride had become a prison, and he couldn't see the way out. 1 year later, the king was walking on the roof of his palace in Babylon, looking out at his magnificent city. "Look at this great Babylon," he said to himself. "Is this not the city that I, by my own mighty power, have built as a royal residence for my own glory?" And as those words of pride left his mouth, a voice from heaven spoke, "The kingdom has departed from you." Immediately, his mind was taken from him. He became like an animal, driven out from his palace. He ate grass like an ox. His hair grew long like eagle's feathers, and his nails became like claws. He lost everything: his mind, his power, his dignity. The great king who had looked down on everyone else was now living lower than the lowliest creature. But God's plan was not to destroy him, but to humble him. After 7 periods of time passed, Nebuchadnezzar's reason returned to him. In that moment of clarity, he did the one thing he had never truly done before. He looked up to heaven and gave all the honor and praise to God. His heart was finally broken free from the chains of pride. He finally understood. And in that very moment, his mind was restored. His throne was given back to him, and he was even more glorious than before. The story ends not with a boast of his power, but with a confession of his newfound faith. The king, who once proclaimed himself the King of Kings, now proclaimed that God is the true king, whose dominion is an eternal one. He wrote a decree for all people to know his story, to know that God can humble the proud and that his ways are just and true. And that, my friends, is the most profound lesson. Pride is a dangerous deception that makes us believe we are in control. But humility is the key that unlocks the door to God's grace and restoration. No matter what you're facing, no matter how great you think you are, or how broken you feel, remember the story of Nebuchadnezzar. God can humble the greatest of kings and restore the most broken of hearts. All he asks is that we turn our eyes to him and acknowledge his rule over all things.